Thrilled to have Steve Levin on the call tonight. We're really lucky to have him. This is one of the instances in which we have someone who's a professional in an area that touches upon the advocacy work that we do. So Steve's an executive coach, and he's a master trainer. He trains the trainers. He's the creator and leader of the Powerful Conversations workshop, which is advanced coaching skills to experienced leaders and coaches. There are 30 years of experience in facilitating interactive workshops and led major consulting projects in change management, organizational development, and cultural change. Steve's an undergraduate and graduate degrees from Yale and proud to be an active CCL member and supporter. So, hey, Steve, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your wisdom with us tonight. I know I have been in meetings with you, and you're something. Thrilled to have you. So why don't you take it from there?
All right. Well, we're here to make something happen. So I am really thrilled to be here with you all. I believe so strongly in the CCL mission and what you all are doing, what we all are doing. And I asked Dave how I could help, and he came up with this idea of help us figure out how to engage our audiences. So here we are, ready to engage. And I want to start with a very simple question. And I want you to engage with me a very simple question. Why is it important to engage your audience? There are at least 5 distinct reasons why this is important. So unmute yourselves and give me one. Let's do this quickly. Who's got one?
They will listen to you.
They listen more when they engage. When they talk, they actually put their energy into the room and they're ready to receive what you say. What else? Number 2.
They're not sleeping.
Yeah, it wakes them up. Again, energy gets roused and moving. When you can get them engaged, there's an energetic flow between you. What else?
So they may take action.
They're ready to take action, or more likely to take action, because engaging is a form of action. Speaking is a form of action. Offering their ideas is a form of action. What else? Number 4.
So you feel, so they feel like you care what they think.
So they get, not only are you talking, but you're listening to them, right? You care what they think. Like I just did for Tim. I repeated what he said, and just his hearing that put a little smile under that baseball cap. You could see it. What else? Number 5. Another good reason to engage.
Know thy audience.
Pardon?
Know thy audience.
You can know them, you can attune to them, and so if you can adjust what you say to what they say, you're going to be in that state of attunement. You're going to be aligned with them. You're not just talking at them, sharing valuable information. You are in a dance with them, engaging around a topic, exploring it, and you're learning. So those are some great reasons. So now let's consider the next question, which is, why is it hard, or what keeps engagement low? Imagine you're doing a presentation, seems to be going okay, and you realize that you're the only one doing the talking. What contributes to that? What is it that you're doing or not doing that keeps the engagement low? Who's got some ideas?
You've got a time limit and you're trying to squeeze everything in.
You're trying to get through the material as though the more you can say, the better it is. But that's not true. It's the more that they hear and the more that resonates with them that makes your presentation powerful. Do you agree? It's
Yes.
actually having an impact on them that makes a difference. What else? What else keeps engagement low? You're trying to get through material. What else?
There could be technical reasons like they can't hear it well, or screen's awkward, that sort of thing.
Yeah. You notice I took a moment or 2 to coach you on how to set up your Zoom screen and get rid of the non-video participants. You can do that in the room. Make sure everyone hears you. But what else? What is it that you're doing or not doing that keeps engagement low?
Not asking questions?
Yeah, if you don't ask questions, they're not going to respond. If you don't expect them to engage, they won't. So when I walk in and start working with a group, I expect that they have valuable things to say, and I'm here to find out what they are. I'm here to help them articulate. So much of it is asking a question and then expecting to hear a great answer, and boom, they come up with it. 3 major opportunities to engage. at the beginning, where you want them to get curious and move from being a listener to a real participant. In the middle, where you want to stop them from just being a recipient, hearing your ideas and becoming an owner, where they say, these are my ideas. And at the end, guess what you're trying to do? Get them to take action. Move them from simply understanding what you said to taking action. I'm going to show you 6 different tools to use at various points in the program. And in every one of these tools, we're going to leverage the core solution deck that you're all familiar with, the most recent one that I downloaded from the community website. Okay? So if you're going to start from the beginning, we might as well start with getting them curious, having them move to a place where they want to know more. And the best way to do that is right at the beginning with your first slide, where you're talking about carbon fee and dividend. You haven't even gotten into the material. And here's what you do. Well, here's what you can do. By the way, everything I'm going to show you is meant to be effective in getting people engaged without you losing control of the room. And every technique can be done in a light or heavy way. I'm going to show you a light way of doing these, trusting that you want to do things with a short amount of time. Before I do that, I see I need to make one more adjustment. Excuse me. Right there. All right, here we go. So our first method to get people engaged right from the beginning is to say, folks, I'd like to get a sense of where you are now and you're thinking about climate change. You've all heard about climate change, but there's probably a wide variety of opinions in the room. So I'd like you to consider, where are you? I'd like you to consider that if your view is the climate is mostly okay and we don't need a lot of action, let's make you a 1 on a 5-point scale. We'll give you 1 finger. If you have some concerns, but maybe it's not worth upsetting the status quo, that's about a 3. And the highest level is if you think climate change requires immediate attention and significant collective change, you're a 5. So just imagine to yourself, where are you on the scale? How many fingers in your fist would you use to express it? In just about 10 seconds, I'm going to ask you to raise up one hand and show me the number of fingers that represents where you are from 1 to 5. Everyone clear on their number? You ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. Show me your fingers. And I'm looking, I see a 5, a 5. You see somebody has 10. Now I'm going to make it up. Oh, I see someone has a 2. That's great. And there's a 3. Well, thank you. And actually, it's great to have every voice in the room. I'm so glad we have a variety of views here because no view is good or bad. My only request is that you seek to learn something today that you didn't know. You don't need to change your view, but see what happens when you open to learning new things from today's talk and from our interaction. Everybody ready? Here we go. Now let's pause. This is a very light way to get people engaged. It serves several purposes. For time efficiency, I'm just going to tell you the intent. The first is it's to get people doing something, even if it's just putting up a certain number of fingers. The second, it's an inclusion exercise. It says everybody is welcome, and I make that point very explicitly. The third is, and I didn't do this, I probably should have, is to say, and look around the room, see who else is here, and notice who's the same and who's different. It gives them a sense that we're not just individual here, we're here as a collective and we can move as a collective. It's very quick, it's very sweet. I'm going to show you the next tool and then I'm going to pause and get your questions about this and the other one. This is called Fist of 5. The shortest version is to say, hey everybody, I want you to put a fist up in the air. I'm going to ask you where you're on a 5-point scale. 1 is climate change, climate is fine, there's no problem. 5 is we got a huge problem and have to do something. Pick your number in between. Are you ready? Show me your fingers. Are you ready? Everyone ready? Look around, nod ahead. Yeah, ready? Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, go. Boom. You're off and running. It takes literally less than 1 minute. All right, our next tool is to get them engaged in thinking about climate change and to generate vital questions. Now, this is a little heavier tool. because once you get people to talk among themselves, which we're going to do, it's easy to lose control of the room. And suddenly they love talking with each other and they're not done and so forth. So I've learned over the years to keep very tight boundaries around any interactive exercise. It looks like this. So folks, I'd love to hear a little bit, just a sampling of what's on your mind and the questions you have about climate change. Let's imagine, and by the way, I'm not showing any slide to them. I'm only showing it to you as trainers in training. This is no slides for the participants, but I'll show it to you. I'd like you to imagine you're on an airplane. The person next to you says, I'm an activist and I'm here to address climate change. You go, really? He says, yeah. What questions do you have for me? I'm always curious what people want to know. So he's asking you for your questions. I'd like you to turn now to a partner and together come up with 3 questions that you have between the two of you that is sincere and important to you. And I'm only going to give you 2 minutes to do this. Everyone clear? Work with a partner. 2 minutes. Come up with up to 3 questions. Are you ready? Begin now. Just like that. I start my stopwatch. At 1.5 minutes, I ring my chime, which I don't have with me, which I'm going to get, and which I have with me in my kit. And I say, take a moment to wrap up. And when it's 2 minutes, I ring it again. They go quiet, and I'm ready to debrief. Now here's the other pitfall. You've managed them to only 2 minutes. You might think, well, they don't have enough time. They don't need time. They don't need to come up with 3. They just have to get started. All they have to do is warm themselves up, because now comes the report out. And I'm going to do here what's called a popcorn report out. I'm not going to hear from each group. I'm going to say, so I'd love to hear just a few ideas. Who's got one? And I'm looking around the room. I go, who's got one? Raise your hand. Who's got one? I'm looking around. I know someone's going to pop. You, what's your question? Great question. What's your question? Great. Don't get snagged into answering questions. Just validate, wow, great question. That's an interesting one. Then you come back and say, yes, we're going to address many of these questions, particularly the ones regarding the problem with climate change and the solution that we think can help. We probably won't go in depth on the science because, frankly, for most people, that question is settled. But if you want to learn more about the science, you're skeptical or you're curious about that, see me afterwards. I'll give you some resources. Okay, that's the end of that process. The idea is not to hear all the questions, it's to get them questioning themselves. So now, that's the end of the Get Curious, the 2 tools that you can open with. And there are many variations. These are just samples. Right now, I'm going to stop the share and I'd like to hear your questions and ideas regarding this. Please unmute yourself and let's hear from you.
Yeah, Steve, I have a question.
Yeah.
In the presentations that I gave in West Texas, more questions were about science than anything else.
Yeah.
And most of them didn't even think there was a problem. So how do you, what do you just?
Well, so are you prepared to answer those, Bill?
Yeah, but I feel like I am, but I feel like it might go too long.
Well, here's the deal. I've long since given up on the idea that I'm going to get through all my material no matter what. Instead, I'm going to make the very best use of available time to serve my audience and to advance the cause. That's my goal. If I'm prepared well, I will have anticipated that they have a lot of science questions. I will have adjusted my deck around science. I will have said something at the beginning about, I'm going to give you a 15-minute briefing on the science for those of you who are curious, and it may not satisfy you all. But after that, I'm going to take you further and say, if the science is true and there is a problem, what can we do? Or maybe you spend 30 minutes, or maybe you spend a whole hour on the science. That's up to you. The idea is you want to prepare for your audience and spend the time so it works for them. you're going through your material when they don't connect to it is a waste of your time and theirs. What do you think about that, Bill?
I agree. That's a good way to go.
All right.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
This is Rick Knight from Brookfield, Illinois. What do you think about if somebody, say, gives a skeptical answer about the science, asking them, why do you think that way? Is that a little bit too...
What's the skeptical answer? First of all, where are we in the program? Are we at the beginning?
We're after you ask some people for what questions.
Yeah, what questions do you have, Rick? Go ahead and do that
questions
first.
you have. And some guy says, well, I really don't think there's anything going on here because weather changes all the time.
Okay, and so what's your question?
I've heard that that scientists are just trying to get grant money.
All right, so do you have a question about that?
Yeah, I'm gonna now. Can I say to him, why do you think?
No, wait. Nope, we're in a role play. You're the participant. I'm the instructor. I'm demonstrating. So stay with me, okay?
All right.
So you just said, I've heard blah, 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 blah. I said, yes. And do you have a question about that, Rick? Would you like to explore that?
Well, sure, but I'd like to see
By
somebody
the way,
convince me that this ain't happening.
well, I'll tell you one thing. I'm not here to convince you or anyone else, but let me just check around the room. If you share Rick's question that you're not sure about the science and you'd like to know more, could I just see a show of hands? Please see how many. Look, Rick, you're not the only one. So I'll try to address that as best I can in this short presentation, but I'll tell you now, I'm not the best person to persuade you or anyone else about science. I'm a great person to talk with you about the whole picture. So let's see what I can do to provide value to you. And I appreciate you bringing your healthy skepticism to the party. Who else has a question?
Oh, I love it.
So time out. Time out. This is an important point. What did you observe me doing that worked?
You validated him.
I validate that he
Question.
is here. I validate him as a human being. I'm glad he's raising it. He's not alone. And I'm refusing to engage with him around the content.
Yeah, you kind of ducked.
No, I didn't duck. I deferred. I said, in fact, I said, no, I'm not here to convince you, and I'm not going to present enough science to satisfy you. What I will do is show you the big picture, and maybe you'll learn something valuable from that. And if you want more resources around the science, I'll provide that later. Or I'll say, actually, Rick, I'm glad you asked that because I've prepared a special presentation all about the science for you and anyone else who thinks that. But that assumes, of course, that you know your audience. Okay, let's get other reactions about this Get Curious stage and the two tools, the Fist of Five and generating questions. Any other questions or comments? Do they make sense? Give me a Fist of Five. If it makes sense to you, you're comfortable, you want to move on, give me a 5. If it's like, I don't know, I need to spend time, it's 3. I hate this, it's a 1. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. All right, I see a lot of 5s. Great, we're gonna move on. Now, time out. Notice you can use that tool anytime it's that fast. All right, we're going back in, folks. We're gonna go to the middle, the messy middle. All right, the middle is all about fostering ownership. You can hand them the baton, but will they take it and run with it? And there are actually 3 great ways to do this, or 3 aspects of this, I should say. First, in your presentation, you need them to validate the need for change. You can, maybe they already agree, like, oh yeah, it's a problem, but you want them to validate it. You want them to talk themselves into why you're right and why they're right. Second, you want them to affirm the solution of carbon fee and dividend. It's not enough to passively understand it. They need to go, yeah, that's a good idea. And they need to appreciate the benefits. Now that's a heavy lift. If it were me, I'd put most of my interaction time around this because I know that a lot of groups will passively listen to what I say and they'll say, yeah, that makes sense, but they haven't really internalized it. So how do you do it? Well, a good place to begin is with this slide or something like it, where you've presented the case for the climate changing and it's really bad. whatever slide you use to say, we got a problem. That's where you begin. And the first technique to validate the need for change is to say, folks, I've talked to you about why we need to change, but I wonder how it lands on you. Let's just imagine for a moment that a friend of yours just arrives now. They're a little late. And they say, you know, I don't get it. Maybe it's like Rick. You know, Rick heard this about the science. He doesn't really see the problem. Why should we care? I'd like you to talk with a neighbor and in pairs identify 2 or 3 really important answers that you can give based on your understanding as to why we need to address climate change now. And feel free to refer to the slides I just showed you around temperature and so forth, anything else you know. I'm only going to give you 3 minutes for this to talk with a neighbor and come up with 2 or 3 important answers. Everybody ready? By the way, could you just now, before you start, could you find your partner right now? Just turn to them, shake their hand right now. I want to see everyone's hand shaking. Yeah? Everyone got a partner? You don't? Okay, how about there? Okay, good. Are you ready? 3 minutes, begin. Why should we care? Stopwatch starts. If I'm on my game, I got my chime. I start it. I actually use the chime to start and stop people. After a while, they get trained. 2.5 minutes in, I say, take a moment to wrap up and come back to the center. Thank you. Please thank your partner. Everyone take a moment, thank your partner. Come on back here. All right, let's hear some of the key reasons to care. Now, it's very similar to the last exercise, but now we're doing the advanced course. And what you're going to do, you're going to weave their answers into a narrative. So I'd like you to participate with me. What are some of the reasons why we need to care about climate change? Let's have some of you folks who know your stuff go first. Give me one reason.
It affects our quality of life.
Yeah, it affects our quality of life as it's harder to breathe. Lives are lost because of it. What else? And what else?
It's making us sick.
Exactly. As it makes it sick, again, it goes back to quality of life. It affects our health. What else? Who's got a different reason?
Economic consequences.
Yeah, it's actually damaging our economy, as I showed you before, blah, blah, blah. And what else?
It's affecting my property values.
It can actually affect our economy by making parts of the country less valuable. And what else?
You're really damaging the planet for the next generation.
It's not just us, it's the next generation. So, okay, you get the rhythm and the cadence. The idea is whatever they say, you grab a nugget, you validate, and you say, and what else? And what else? And what else? You don't wait. You look around expecting the next person to chime in, and they will, because you set the pace. Everyone good?
Yep.
Yes.
Let's go to the next one. You've got a lot to do in this section. So we validated the need for change. Now comes the big one. I just explained our best first step, carbon fee and dividend. And I've shown you this slide. I've talked you through it. I've explained every aspect of it. Plus, I added carbon border adjustments, which aren't on this slide, but I stuck them in at the end. And I want to find out whether it got through. And the answer is probably not. First time. Isn't that true? You know, it's a lot easier. You understand it, but you didn't get it at first either. Neither did I. It takes something to actually have it sink in. So we're going to go back to our friend and say, hey, and here I am going to show them a slide. Put this up so they have something to refer to. And I'm going to say, folks, I'm not going to show them the affirm the solution part. I'm going to show them this slide. And I'm going to say, you know, I've just shared a lot of information with you. And there are 3 moving parts to this. I'd like us all to get really clear about what this proposal means. And the best way is to explain it to someone else. So I'd like you now, as a group of 3, find 2 other people, and you're actually going to work together as a team. And imagine that your curious friend says, well, how does this work, carbon fee and dividend? As a team, I'd like to explain to this team. And be sure to cover the 3 moving parts, the escalating fee on carbon, rebates to households, and the carbon border adjustments. You're going to need to help each other here. Maybe one person will remember one thing, another one will puzzle it through. And when you come back, I want to hear your story. 5 to 7 minutes. By the way, if you need help, if you get stuck, raise your hand, and I or one of the other volunteers will come by to help you, help your small group. But see how far you can get in really explaining it to someone else. Everyone clear? All right, let's form your groups of 3. Turn to 2 other people. By the way, 3 is more than 2 and less than 4. So groups of 3 only. If you're in a group of 4, find someone else. Okay, we have one group of 4, fine. Do not let them gang up into 5 and 6 and 7. That's what they'll do. You got to get them into those groups, get them going. How does carbon fee and dividend work? You do the chime, you bring them back, and you debrief again. You say, let's tell the story together. You elicit their views. Now, this is where you again set the pace and say, so let me ask, rather than hear from each group, I'd like us to tell this story together. What is a carbon fee and how much is it to begin with? Yeah, it's $15. Why do we start there? Because it's enough to feel the pain, but not so much that you can't afford it right away. Why are we doing this? To incent the blah, blah, blah. Basically, you're going to be bringing it to life, explaining it, but you're going to do it interactively with them. It's a conversation where together you're recreating the model where they should be doing at least 50% of the talking. Then, if you have time and interest, you can respond to questions or you can defer them. So obviously, this is a big piece. You're getting them to engage with you. You're helping them understand it. It doesn't matter whether they understand it at their 10%, 20%, 50% level. You're going to nudge them towards a little more. All right, one more tool in this section, the benefits. Let's say you've shown them the REMI study. You've made the case for how there are a lot of benefits. I actually think this is a weak slide in the deck because it only focuses on economic benefits. So I created something that you're welcome to copy or use, or of course you can stick with what you have. And it goes like this. You know, now that we understand a little bit about carbon fee and dividend, let's see if we can explain to ourselves why this is so important. There are a lot of features to it. So I'm really curious what's most important to you. And I bet it's going to be different for many of you. Let me show you my list of the features that matter a lot to me. With the question that you ask in pairs, I want you to turn to your partner and ask, which of these features matter the most to you? Time out. What I'm going to do in the next few moments is bring to life the bullets on the slide. Watch how I do it, how quick it is, and how it's meant to get them. So I wonder, is it important to you that it's nonpartisan? The fact that Democrats or Republicans, liberals and conservatives, they can all find benefit in this solution. Is that important to you? Or maybe it's important to you that it's market-based, that it uses price signals instead of having a lot of government control and government regulation. It's simple. You charge a fee, you choose to pay it or not, it influences the price on carbon. Is that what's important to you? Or do you like that it can actually boost the economy? The REMI study that shows that it adds 2.whatever million jobs, and that it can actually increase our industry. Is that what really grabs you? Some people like that it's fair for everybody, that the rebates funnel the money back to home so that people who are less fortunate, who have less means, won't suffer, it won't be regressive. That those who consume the most will pay the most, and those who save the most will actually benefit. They might actually get money back. Do you like that it's enduring? Like we talked about the Alaska permanent fund. That when people get a check, they're going to be very reluctant to give that up. So the next political administration can't cancel this program. Or maybe what works for you is that it's a technology agnostic. That whether you believe in solar or nuclear or just using less, it doesn't matter. This method will send a signal to reduce carbon for everybody. Or maybe it's just the fact that this works. that this program will reduce carbon significantly and improve our climate. So take a look at this list, turn to your partner, and ask them which of these matter most to you and why. And then go to the second and the third one. I'm only going to give you a few minutes for this. I'd like you to explain why your favorite is important and see if you can persuade them to join you. Give them a few minutes to do that. Thanks. Let's hear from you. Which one did you like and why? How about another? How about another? What's another reason to like this? All you're doing is getting them to digest the benefits, to appreciate them. Okay. I'm going to pause to share. Those are 3 tools. It's a heavy lift. I wonder what you're thinking. What questions do you have? And what do you like about these tools? I didn't ask that before, but it's always a great idea for a presenter to ask, what do you like about what I just said? That's a softball question. You always want to ask that one. So what do you like about any of these tools? Who's got something?
I like the engagement, but I wonder how this works with a more formal audience, where, you know, you have a bunch of suits sitting there, and they're not used to being interactive with each other in a presentation.
You know, there's a seasoned consultant who was giving a talk to 300 of us change agents. And the question was, what if they're not ready for it?
Mm-hmm.
And he had the greatest answer. He says, they'll be ready to hear it when you're ready to say it. And that's what I say to you. Everybody likes to talk. Everybody likes to be heard. Everybody likes to participate, but they're shy and they won't do it unless they're given clear, crisp instructions. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is for you to claim your authority as I'm doing now with you. You notice I'm not saying, oh yeah, well, I guess if they won't, I don't know, if they won't do it, maybe you shouldn't try it, huh? I don't know. What do other, I don't know. Can I get back to, no, I'm not doing that. I'm claiming my authority and saying, this is the game we're playing. Join me. This is fun. It's critical. It's equally critical that you manage the time. As I've said before, we're going to take 2 minutes for this exercise, so don't waste a moment. Are you ready? Turn to your partner. Ask if they're ready. You ready? Everyone ready? Yeah? Begin now. Boom. So Linda, I appreciate your question because, of course, if you're not used to this and they're not used to it, it feels a little odd. But it's just a habit. And I've worked with the stuffiest people in the world. Trust me on this. I've worked with the suits of the suits. The people who claim, I worked with one guy, the senior vice president, who everyone called the Grouch. And he kept tearing holes in me. And at the end he said, don't you ever say no? And I go, why would I? You just got to outlast him. Who's got another question?
I have a question about length. How long of a presentation do you think you need to do this? Because it sounds like this would take some time.
Well, it takes some time, but it takes a surprisingly little amount of clock time. What it takes is emotional investment time. It takes intensity. You notice I'm squeezing this whole thing into an hour. We're covering a ton of material. I'm demonstrating and getting you to interact. You got to do that too.
Steve.
Now, if you have 20 minutes, you probably only have time for one interactive exercise. It's going to be brief.
Steve, what do you think?
I find sometimes to finish this up, sometimes they'll say you have 20 minutes or 30, but they almost always give us a lot more. But would be a little nervous about planning it to be that long, you know.
Well, there's, the accordion, this wonderful instrument. It stretches or compresses to meet your need. And that's what your presentation does. I could take any topic and talk for it for 40 minutes, 4 days, or 4 weeks. Because I have enough tools in my toolkit to modulate. The greater the time, the more the participation, the more the exploration. What I suggest is try to negotiate for all the time you can get and use it super well, and they'll love you for it.
Steve, I got one question. What do you think, because some people might, if you're put on the spot, okay, think of a question to ask your neighbor.
Yeah.
They might think, well, I'm not sure. What do you think about giving people a written list? Here are questions you're going to be required to ask ahead of time, so people have a few minutes to think about it.
Well, I like the idea of planting seeds and then watering them and seeing what grows. I don't like the idea of requiring someone to do anything, because then they feel coerced. So you'll notice I did that. If we go back to this slide on the benefits, to get them to appreciate the benefits, I could have said, I'll share the screen again. In this slide, I could have just said, hey folks, what do you like about this program? Turn to your neighbor and tell them what you like. But instead, I decided to give you a pick list so that I could sell you more on the benefits and then have you talk your way into them. So I said, do you like that it's nonpartisan? And then I didn't just say that. I said, the Democrats and Republicans, conservatives and liberals, everybody can like this. I did that for all of them. So that's an example of planting seeds and watering them. And then you turn them loose and they say what they say. I've learned from long experience that you really cannot control people once they start talking, but you can set up a frame, a nice tight frame with direction, and they'll come up with something good. Let's hear some other questions or comments from someone else.
Steve, I have a question. You said something really important at the beginning, and I just didn't want to miss it, which is serving your audience.
Yeah.
And with this interaction versus content, how much are you prepared to give away to serve sacrifice content? I don't know if I'm clear on that.
Okay, so it's interesting. There's giveaway, as in dilute your value, and there's let go of content, which to me is being more concise. So you know the key points you want to make. If I said, give me a 10-minute presentation on carbon, you get 10 full minutes, but only 10. And by the way, limit it to 5 slides. You could do it.
You would dynamically adjust on the fly.
You would plan for it and you would adjust. So you have to know, you have to pick your points. Also, if you don't have a lot of time, like I'm giving you 6 tools by the time we're done, you're going to pick and choose the tool that works for you. You don't need to use any of these. You can make up your own. I'm just giving you some varieties. Pick the tool that's going to produce the most value. Unmute.
It almost seems like you want to practice a really short version of your presentation so that when you need to, you can punt and take that time to engage.
Most slides, really, people talk too much, including me. You can boil down a slide to 3 sentences. Da 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 da. What questions do you have? That's it. Except for the carbon fee and dividend. That's a complicated one, but it's a build. I don't know if you guys do you do that as a build? You show one element, then another, and another.
Yes.
You really should. You have to. It's complicated. But for most of the other slides, get it down to the core. Let me move on to the third section because I'm watching my time. It's time to bring them to the end where they're ready to take action, or as I like to say, figure out how to clean up our own mess. The climate is our mess. It's up to us to figure out what to do. And no one's going to scoop up the poop for us. We have to do it for ourselves. How do we do it? Now, the traditional slide here looks something like this. Fonts are a little off. Exercise your political power, advocate for our solution, work with CCL, register for the call. It's fine. I think we're missing an opportunity here, at least in some cases. And I want to show you a different way to frame involvement. This will not apply to all groups, but I wonder if it could apply to some. So here goes. I'd say, folks, when you leave here, you might be ready to participate in finding and creating a solution. And I want to suggest to you that any one of us, each of us, has 3 different types of ways to participate in creating change. I'm going to show you the 3 that really appeal to me. I've tried all of these, and I wonder which you are ready for. So the first one, in answering this question, how you plan to engage, the first one is to work within your own personal circumstances. And this is important. If you go away from here and share these ideas with your friends and colleagues and family, and you identify what you can personally do to reduce your carbon footprint, whether it's drive less or get an electric car or change light bulbs, all of that is helpful. You can also decide that you're just going to attend a first phone call with CCL. I'm going to give you the information where you can learn more about it. You're working very close to home. The next level you can choose to work at is to start to engage others. Maybe you're ready to write a letter to a member of Congress. If so, I'd love to support you. Or maybe you know of groups that I can go to speak with. I can give this talk or a talk like this, or we can bring in someone. People who want to explore. Or maybe you've been on an introductory call and you're ready to attend a chapter meeting. If so, that's terrific. You're stepping outside your own personal circumstances. And maybe a few of you, maybe all of you, maybe none of you, I don't know, you're ready to become an advocate. That you might join a meeting with your member of Congress, or you might join one of our action teams. I'm on one of the action teams. I'm on the presenter action team. That's why I'm here. You can even learn to give this talk to others. So what I'd like you to do is to become curious, to turn to a partner once more and realize there's no right answer. Just ask them, what are you ready for? What's your personal action plan? So in 2s or 3s, ask each other, what action will you take? And how will you follow through? Who can support or witness your progress? So take a few minutes now, turn to your partner, and just think for yourself, what feels right to you and what are you ready to do? I'll leave up this slide so you can refer to it to stimulate your ideas. So you do this. You might hear some highlights, debrief a little bit. Who's ready to do this? Any blah, 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 blah. You might even get some of your friends in the audience, say what they're going to do. At this point, you wrap up. Please sign our email list. We're going to follow up with you. I'd love to hear your ideas, questions, and bingo, you're done. That's the end. Now, I want to own, this is just my invention to push the envelope a little about how assertive we are in giving people ways to take action and stimulating them to consider more than we do normally. If you don't like it, don't do it, but I wanted to share it with you. So I'm going to stop the share. That's really all I have to present tonight. And we have 8 minutes left for conversation. Any questions, any appreciations you have? I'd love to hear which of these ideas land well with you and you'd like to try and why.
Steve?
Maybe we'll practice that a little bit. Yeah.
I was a teacher for 5 years, and there was a consultant who's really made many of the same suggestions that you're making about engagement and fist to 5 and breaking the time up and into these breakout discussions. So I've seen good results with this.
Excellent. You mean it works? Oh my gosh. That's great. Thank you, Rich. I'm glad to hear it.
I'd like to know how we practice this. In, the normal traditional speech, you've got your slides, you've got the points you want to make, you rehearse them to yourself, you stand in front of a mirror, and so on, you time yourself, and so on. And you end up with something very traditional and very set. It seems to me you've got to have a lot of self-confidence and flexibility to go to do what you are doing. And how do I practice it?
Well, and let me say, I've practiced this for over 20 years, so I am very
I haven't got 20 years left.
Right. So, but here's the thing. I've also trained people to do this, and it's remarkable how a little bit goes a very, very long way. And even if you're not confident, even if you get it kind of a little bit off, it's going to be 3 times as good as anything they've ever expected or they've ever seen before. People are just not used to being engaged in a productive way. So I want to encourage you, Linda, and others to practice with each other. If you're interested, maybe Dave could put out a message or something. Maybe I could do a workshop or something where people actually practice, or I could help you set that up.
I think that would be great.
Practice is key. But I'll tell you, a little goes a long way. You can just do one of these. Probably not the fist of 5, but one of them where you turn to a partner for 2 minutes. Let me hear from you. Thank you. We're going to move on. And it will transform the room.
I just want to point out that a lot of things that we're doing in CCL at conferences, regional meetings, or even our chapter meetings, there's always this break where we go and we're talking with somebody who's sitting next to us. I don't know if that's something you've all observed, but we're doing it internal to CCL all the time.
All the time.
Being able to manage it from outside, but I bet everybody's within a CCL experience has done these 2s and 3 conversations. Really good.
The key is when you put them into pairs or trios to create a very tight frame, a clear focused question, give them a very short time, much shorter than they prefer. Let them know, I'm going to give you a short time just so you can warm each other up. And then I want to come back. I want you to come back with your best ideas so far. Manage expectations. What else?
This is Larry Kramer in the Woodlands, and I really liked your presentation. The 2 slides I liked the most were your alternative to the benefits of carbon fee and dividend, because I think it gives people a different way to respond than just economic. And then I liked your last slide that showed different levels of commitment that you could take and still make a difference.
Thank you. Other thoughts and reactions?
Yeah, this is Steve from Ohio. Hello.
Yeah.
We've done some of these things in liaison calls where we break out into 2 or 3 in Zoom. And I guess there's some feature where you can do that, and it works pretty well. Thanks, it's great.
When you do your initial fist of 5 concern, what level of concern people have, if it really breaks in one direction, one end or the other, does that impact the rest of your presentation?
Frankly, I don't care how many fingers they put up. They could all be 1s or all be 5s or some mix. Doesn't matter. What I care about is that they move from listening to participating within the first 3 minutes. That's the whole idea. Now, it's also good information for me to see how many fingers they have up so I can read my audience. It's an incredibly fast way to read your audience. Consider also an alternative question. If you're talking with people who are already involved, you can say, how involved are you personally in fighting climate change? If you're a full-time activist, 100% in, you're a 5. If you're someone who thinks about it but really hasn't done anything yet, you're a 1. And a 3 would be, part-time volunteer. Pick your own number. Everyone got it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is full-time activist. 1 is I'm thinking about it. Anything in between? Put up your fist. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, go! So it's a different way. Same technique. You can do it on anything. How hungry are you? If you're starving, you're... No, kidding. All right, what else? I'd especially like to hear anything from Jerry or Dave as the conveners. Tim, you've been around a long time. Any thoughts you want to share?
Dave, this is Eric. Can you hear me? Or Steve, this is Eric. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
The issue that hit home to me most of all was your very last point, and I agree we are missing. I can give a well-rehearsed practice talk it, and people might say, yeah, nice talk, and they walk out of the room and never do a darn thing. Somehow to bring them into action is a huge hole we have, and I like your idea.
I want to point out that you can also compliment your audience in the end because they've taken the first action. and talk about it to somebody else. And they've done a wonderful job. You've taken the first
That's great.
step to validate what they've all done. You've never done anything about the climate. You just did. You helped the state, the cause along.
Well, I think we're pretty close to wrapping up. Remarkable presentation. If we have time for one more quick question. Does anybody have a quickie?
I have a quick comment.
Go ahead, please.
So I've done the training for this presentation and I've done a couple of presentations, but what I actually find is that the presentation training is great for doing one-on-one discussions, and I use all of the stuff I've learned in presentations for one-on-one. So if you're worried about not having a place to use it with the person you're sitting on the bus with. Use it with the person you're standing in line with. I always start like, hey, what do you think of the weather lately? And then if there's an opening, I launch into the CCL stuff.
Wow. I'm going to cut it off there and say, Steve, thank you. Just fabulous presentation. I think it was reflected in the chat. People said the same thing, but it is so important. You know, I just want to talk to you. I just want to get all the information out. This is very useful for me because I've got to engage people. So my promise as a result of this, Steve, is that on September 27th, we're going to come back, do it again. I'm going to give you guys some economics, and it's going to be, I'm going to engage you in the economic discussion. So there's going to be at least 3/5 of 5 in that. So that'll be an interesting challenge. Steve, really fabulous job. I think this will benefit my presentations, and I imagine it's the same for. All right, go ahead. 1 to 5, folks. Give it to her. Ready? Oh, dude, you aced it. You aced it.
Thanks so much. Thanks for attending and for your interest, and go out and engage.
Thank you, everybody, and hope to talk to you next month.
Good night. Thank you, Steve.
Good night. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. That was great.